Continuing our coverage of the sock puppets now.
Just so that we're looking at this from a clear perspective, when we say MTIP funding, or Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program, MTIP funding, in the sense, isn't necessarily TriMet's normal funding cycle from the federal government, if I'm asking the question correctly. I mean, we get various...
Well, good for him for asking that question, because if you watched the last part, I had no idea what MTIP funding is, and neither does Travis, and he's asking about it. You know, I love to see board members at least ask questions, even though we already know they're going to vote whatever McFarland tells them. At least they should ask questions, and that's a good question, Travis. Thank you.
Funds from the federal government, but the MTIP funding is primarily controlled by the Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation, JPAC. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And these bonds will then be backed by those future revenues?
They will be primarily backed by those. They will be secondarily backed by our own 5307 federal funding. Because that's the same combination of collateral that we used on the 2011 bonds, so we would continue that. This is an A-rated issue, but because it's federally funded, it's not a AAA rated issue, like the rest of TriMet's are, but it's still a very good rating, and it's still a substantially important project. It's CMAQ funding combined with the JPAC-controlled 5307.
Okay. Thank you.
So he asked a question, and we got this weird, vague answer with all these numbers. You know, who knows what she's talking about? Nobody, including him, and he doesn't follow up. You know, they're playing all these financial games here. We don't know what's going on. These are A-rated, AAA. You know, they're playing games with the tax money here. I don't even know why transit districts are allowed to borrow money like this. Why don't they just use the bond proceeds and pay zero interest? Well, I know the answer to that, of course, because the banks need their cut. What a joke.
Other questions?
You know, I would like to note one more thing, and that is that there is another action that's embedded in this resolution. That's the intent to reimburse ourselves for any money that's spent from the time that this is approved until we actually bond. So that is number 7, intent to reimburse. So.
You know, what is that supposed to mean? An attempt to reimburse ourselves for money? They're going to get the money, they're going to loan themselves money, and then they're going to... See, it's some kind of financial game. They don't want to wait to get the money. They want that money right now, pay bonuses, pay contracts, pay the elites, and worry about it later. This is all of government. Go ahead and make bonds, make commitments to the taxpayers. Don't give the taxpayers a voice. We're going to make these commitments, and they have no voice in it. And we'll take all the money out right now for us, and you worry about paying the bill later. Yippee! Yeah, you know, when the shit hits the fan with all this government bullshit they're doing, not just a TriMet, but all of government, the shit's going to hit the fan so hard it's going to make the Great Depression look like kindergarten.
And that means we may expend funds or release funds before the actual bond proceeds are received?
Yes, the ODOT and the Safe Routes to School in particular, but also our own projects, they're eager to spend money starting July 1st. And
see, this stuff is really, really the nitty-gritty. They're eager to spend the money right now. Of course they are. It keeps them employed. They want the money now. I mean, it's really a con game. This shit should be illegal.
And so in order for us to be able to cover those expenditures with the bond proceeds, we have to have what's called, in my world, a reach-back resolution to allow us to cover those expenditures with bond proceeds, even if the bond is issued at a later date.
So it's primarily an issue with timing.
Correct.
Of when funds need to be expended and when funds need to be received, but it's more of a housekeeping item that we need to make sure that it's included in the actual resolution to ensure that that's the proper way of accounting for all the funds as they move back and forth.
Exactly.
This is not how anything is done in the real world. Real people don't spend the money they don't have unless they use a credit. They're basically what TriMet's doing is putting all their expenses on a credit card. You know, they have unlimited credit card. Okay, we're going to get all this money now. We're going to pay it out to all of our friends, our contractor friends, our capital projects employees, and we'll put it on a credit card, and then sometime in the future, all the citizens are going to pay that back, but we've already got the money in our pocket. I don't know. I find it terrifying, really, that they can get away with this.
I see no other questions. Is there then a motion to approve Resolution 17-05-44?
So move.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 17-05-44, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is approved unanimously. Let's move on then to Resolution 17-05-45, which is authorizing a modification to the contract with CH2M Hill for design services for the Steel Bridge Transit Improvements Project.
So, Mr. Board President, members of the board, we underestimated originally what was going to be involved in the work to rehabilitate our track work and lift joints, switches at either end, and signal system associated with the steel bridge. And if you watch MAX service alerts, you do note that there very often is a service problem associated with one of the switches at one end of the steel bridge or another. And so as we got into the engineering work, we discovered that our original scope of work, frankly, was inadequate to really address all the issues that we had, both short-term and long-term. So there were two elements of this contract with CH2M Hill. One was the short-term series of improvements that will be constructed really over the next couple of years that replace the track work, the lift joints, and the switches associated with the steel bridge area. What we had discovered as we got into the design that a great deal of additional drainage work was also going to be required, and that the whole sort of the invasive nature of the work began to grow. So yes, this might be like remodeling a bathroom in a 1908 house, because that's about the age of this bridge. And so because of that, we are asking for a modification of the contract to allow additional funds to be spent on the design effort. I'd also note on the short-term design effort, I'll also note that we've also had the same sort of issue associated with the portion of the study that Board Member Prosser has, I think, been a champion of, which is looking at what is the long-term future connection on that edge of downtown. And so the number of alternatives that we're looking at have grown, everything from a tunnel to other new bridges to using other bridges that are in the vicinity. So we'll certainly continue to bring you up to date on this work, and we briefed you earlier this summer, I believe, or earlier this year, excuse me, on the progress on this work. But the bottom line is that we are recommending a modification of the contract, moving up from $800,000 to $1,620,000. And with that, we believe we can complete the work satisfactorily. I'd also note that
You do realize he's just talking about the design work. He's not talking about the actual work. This is all of his little capital projects people are, I don't know, maybe they contract. I mean, who knows what goes on there? They have a huge capital projects department, but they always seem to be contracting out for design work. So this is not for the actual bridge work. This is for the design of the bridge work.
CH2M has indicated a 15% MBE, DBE veterans participation in the overall program. We believe actually we can work with CH2M to actually improve that over time, but they certainly are achieving that commitment as work progresses.
Yes, CH2M Hill. They are in on every public project in the United States of America. They got their greedy little hands out for every project everywhere, man. I think they raked in $50 million on the defunct CRC, which never did anything. $250 million down the drain for nothing. Of course, CM2 Hill had their hand out for that, too.
Again, this work is within the budget as proposed, and as is the capital work that would follow. So with that, recommend your approval, and certainly either I or Steve Witter or others would be happy to answer any questions for you.
have any questions from the board?
As Neil noted and the board well knows, I've had concerns about the steel bridge for a very long time. It's interesting that we have 21st century technology dependent on early 20th century construction. And it's not surprising that we have continuing problems on that bridge. So I'm really pleased about we're looking at concepts for long-term improvements. I was kind of stunned, I must admit, to see that we went from 4 to 22, so it shows a lot of creativeness, so good job. And the sooner we get to identifying those options and the preferred option, the better, because we've got to do this. We've got to fix this bridge so that we can get our service across it. That we're draining money for something that isn't really going to get that much better, and can't. But just because of that disparity between it was built and what the way we use it now. So I'm supportive of this.
Good comments.
Of course, the question to be asked, and nobody's asking, why didn't you think of this shit when you put the light rail in originally to get it done properly? No, we're not going to ask that question. We have a 1900-year bridge, and we put our light rail system in 86? I don't know, man. I mean, it's just, there's no penalty for them for being incompetent, It's just your usual government tax stream run by technocrats who have no responsibility to the citizens, and citizens pay for everything they do wrong.
Other comments, questions?
No questions.
All right. Well, then is there a motion to approve Resolution 17-05-45?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 17-05-42. Folks, excuse me, I'm on the wrong one, I think. Let's try that again.
45.
Should be 45, yes.
45, right?
Did I say 42?
Yeah.
I'll get to it yet here. So Resolution 45, yes. Does want to do let's do a motion again. Is it motion?
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
And a second, okay. All those then in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 17-05-45, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is approved unanimously. Moving on then to Resolution 17-05-46, which is authorizing a contract with Stacy and Whitbeck Incorporated for construction manager / general contractor services for the steel bridge, transit improvements, and deck rehabilitation project.
So speaking of the steel bridge, this is the contractor to actually implement the design work that you considered in the last resolution. And again, what we are looking for is a longer-term arrangement with Stacy and Whitbeck to take on these projects over a sequential period of time. What you're approving, should you approve it, or considering, is a contract that actually is for pre-construction services of around $126,000. But again, it would be our intention to come back to you and modify this contract for the actual value of the construction work, which in the ultimate, at the end of the day, we believe will be worth about $20 million. So it is a big contract. It's a lot of work. It will take place over a number of years so we can minimize the impact to our operations and to our customers. But again, we're very fortunate, I think, to have Stacy and Whitbeck recommended here.
Yeah, Stacy and Whitbeck, they're the cronies, the capitalist cronies of the Trimet system. They get all the contracts. They've been getting the contracts from the very beginning.
As you noted in the background of the memo, we actually, at the end of the day, only received one proposal, very satisfactory proposal, but again, for various reasons, other firms that did attend and did draw down the documents, did attend our pre-construction conference, chose not to actually participate. I would also note Stacy and Whitbeck is the contractor that just did our 11th Avenue turnaround work, did an extraordinarily good job. And they have a great history of working with our community and disadvantaged businesses in their work. So,
yeah, they're just wonderful. They're wonderful. He tells you they're wonderful, so they must be wonderful.
With that, we strongly recommend the approval of this contract, and again, look forward to working with Stacy and Whitbeck to implement these additional improvements. And please, happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions by the board? Fairly straightforward. And then is the board ready to offer a motion to approve Resolution 17-05-46?
So move. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 17-05-46, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is approved unanimously. Let's move on to Resolution 17-05-47, authorizing a contract with WSP USA Administration, Inc. for final design services for the Division Transit Project. Mr. General Manager, maybe you could tell us who WSP is, too, for the record.
So, Mr. Board President, members of the board, very pleased to be able to offer this contract to you. It was a result of a very competitive request for proposals process. WSP is otherwise previously known as Parsons Brinckerhoff, which is a very familiar name and a firm that we've had a long-running relationship.
Yes, Parsons Brinckerhoff. Yes, the other corporation you'll see involved in all kinds of projects all over the country. They changed their name probably because they got tired of the bad reputation. Oh, and this is for that POW boondoggle that they're shoving down everybody's throats. Strictly a crony capitalism kind of deal going on here.
Relationship in terms of design services, including for our West Side Tunnel many years ago. So again, there's a lot of threads that run through your agenda. You approved the budget. You approved the bonding of.
I love the way that McFarland always tries to make it sound like, oh, you're doing the approval. You approve this. We listen to the board. You're in charge, board of directors. He's always trying to make it sound like they're doing something. The fact of the matter is they're not doing anything but approving what he puts in front of them. But he wants it to sound like, oh yeah, you're in charge. You know, we're not all dumb out here, McFarland, okay? We all, lots of us can see through this stupid charade.
The potential MTIP funds that develop funding for the Division Transit Project. This is a design contract for that Division contract project. And I think it's clear that Parsons Brinckerhoff or WSP, now known, has a great deal of experience designing similar BRT-style projects in many other communities around the country, including in Oregon, Eugene, and bring a great deal of experience to this task. And it will be a difficult task because I think we've got a relatively limited budget for 14 miles of service. So
this is completely unnecessary, a complete waste of taxpayer funds, but, we don't have any say in it. They're going to shove it down our throats whether we like it or not.
So we really do need a great deal of creativity as we move through this project to make sure that we provide all the travel advantages and customer service that we want to provide within the budget that's allocated. We went through the procurement process. As you know, we also had very good fine proposals from AECOM, which is another firm that we have worked with many times in the past. WSP indicated it expects to be able to achieve about a 20% disadvantaged business participation, and will be continuing to work with them on the specific subcontracts. The total value of the contract is not to exceed $8.2 million. And with that, recommend your approval.
And once again, that's just to design the project. $8.2 million, that's to do nothing, okay? Just to design it. So you can see what a scam this whole thing is.
Approval, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Jason Tell, and for this proposal and for being here.
Good. Questions by the board? Comments from our representative from East County.
Well, being that, of course, I mean, we always like to see improvements and enhancements of transportation out to East County, of course, and we're very much looking forward to the Powell Division corridor being improved. So this is exciting that we get to see the beginnings of this after all the planning that's gone into it. So I'm supportive. I think I would echo the rest of the community as we look to.
Now here goes Blabbermouth Stovall. They had testimony. I don't know if anybody remembers it, but I do because I watched it and I commented on it, so I remember it. Okay, I actually follow this stuff. They had testimony from residents out there that didn't like this plan at all. But he's not going to acknowledge that because that's how they do. Only their reality is their reality. Everybody else's reality doesn't count. Only the ruler's reality counts. Over and over we see the same thing.
Get this incredible connection between downtown and East County. So we want to be the engine of business as we go forward. So with that, I think this will, from a Powell Division transit perspective, looking forward to this.
Any other questions or comments by the board? Would you also care to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second to the motion to approve this?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's, all those in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 17-05-47, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, as motion is approved unanimously.